Okay, so think about the last time you ordered late night food. You tap a few buttons on your phone, you kick back on the couch, maybe put on a show while you wait. You're probably just watching that little car icon crawl across the map toward your house, right? I mean, it's such an everyday convenience for us. But have you ever stopped to actually think about the person on the other end of that app? Like what they might be walking into when they approach a total stranger's front door in the dead of night? Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we're diving into one of the most chilling mysteries in recent memory, the disappearance of Arjun Rao. Because this isn't just your standard missing person case. No, it's a terrifying look at what happens when an ordinary, everyday routine violently collides with an absolute nightmare.
All right, to really grasp how fast this whole thing went sideways, we need to look at exactly when and where this started. 2:04 a.m. It's a rainy, just incredibly dismal night in Mumbai. Arjun Rao, who's a gig worker, is wrapping up his late-night food delivery shift. He pulls up to this high-end luxury apartment building, and inside, the hallways are dead quiet. You know that kind of sterile, overly bright fluorescent silence that literally only exists at 2 a.m.? Yeah, that. This was supposed to be a completely routine drop-off. Just leave the bag, swipe delivered in the app, and head home. But the second he steps off that elevator and starts walking down the hall, that routine completely shatters.
So Arjun walks up to the specific apartment, takeout bag in hand, and he immediately notices something that just makes his stomach drop. The heavy front door to this luxury unit, it isn't closed. It's actually slightly ajar. Just a tiny crack. Now look, in a high-security building in the middle of the night, an open door is a massive red flag. It's just unnatural. So Arjun hesitates. He doesn't knock. He just stands there in the hallway, kind of holding his breath, trying to figure out, do I announce myself or do I just drop this food and run?
And right in that split second of hesitation, he hears it. A whisper, just barely drifting through that crack in the door. 3 words: hide the body. I really want you to sit with that for a second. Just imagine standing completely alone in a silent hallway, holding a bag of takeout, and hearing those exact words whispered from the dark inside a stranger's home. At that exact moment, Arjun isn't just a delivery guy anymore. He's suddenly, completely by accident, a witness to a major crime in progress.
But before his brain can even process those words, literally before he can even tell his legs to turn around and run, the whole situation just explodes. The door suddenly swings wide open, and there's a man sitting right in the doorway. Now, Arjun later told police this guy was completely silent. He doesn't ask for his food. He doesn't even look surprised. He just stares dead at Arjun. But honestly, the silent man isn't even the scariest part. Because looking right over the guy's shoulder, lying there on the floor of the apartment, Arjun sees a woman's hand, and it is completely, terrifyingly motionless.
Naturally, Arjun just bolts. I mean, who wouldn't? He gets out of the building, gets to a safe spot, and immediately calls it in as an anonymous tip. But this is where the whole thing shifts from a scary encounter into a totally baffling mystery. Arjun's eyewitness account was crystal clear, right? Open door, silent guy, motionless hand, the whispered command to hide a body. But when the police actually show up to that luxury apartment to check it out, they find absolutely nothing. And I don't just mean they couldn't find a body. I mean the apartment is immaculately clean, no body, no blood, no signs of a struggle. Literally zero physical evidence that anyone had even been there, let alone committed a murder. So, what does this actually mean? The crazy contradiction here between what Arjun saw and what the cops found points to one thing: a highly sophisticated, incredibly fast, high-level cover-up. Whoever was in there scrubbed that scene spotless in record time.
Now, you'd probably think that once the police found a whole lot of nothing, that would basically be the end of it for Arjun. He made his tip, he did his civic duty, right? Well, no. The idea that his report was anonymous was a total illusion. Almost immediately after he gets off the phone with the police, his own phone starts ringing, and the caller ID just flashes 2 words: unidentified caller. Talk about psychological terror. Whoever was inside that apartment, whoever magically erased a crime scene in minutes, they somehow knew exactly who was outside their door. And worse, they had his direct number.
So Arjun picks up that first call. He says hello, but there's no voice, no list of demands, no threats. It's just heavy breathing. And then click, they hang up. But then it rings again and again. He starts getting this whole series of menacing, silent calls with absolutely nothing but the sound of someone exhaling into the microphone. It's a totally calculated campaign of intimidation meant to do one thing: induce pure paranoia. It's basically their way of saying, we know exactly who you are, we know where you are, and we are watching you. Just imagine the sheer isolation of riding a bike through the dark streets of Mumbai, and your phone is just constantly buzzing with a predator on the other end of the line.
And from here, the timeline just accelerates like a freight train. It's essentially a ticking clock. Day 1, we have the incident at 2:04 a.m., the motionless hand, and the police report. Day 2, the psychological warfare kicks in. The heavy breathing calls are just relentless, totally isolating Arjun in fear. And then we hit Day 3. Literally just 72 hours after knocking on a slightly ajar door, Arjun Rao completely vanishes in the middle of a delivery shift. He just drops off the face of the earth.
Look, when someone goes missing, investigators immediately hunt for a physical footprint, right? Some trace of where they went. But with Arjun, the clues are incredibly sparse, which is terrifying in its own right. They do find his delivery bike, but it's completely abandoned out in this desolate, empty warehouse district on the edge of the city, way, way off his normal delivery routes. And just a few feet away, they find his mobile phone tossed on the ground. These are definitely not the signs of a guy who just decided to pack up and start a new life. An abandoned bike in the middle of nowhere and a tossed phone, that points straight to a sudden, forced disappearance, an interception.
But there was one last thing. When investigators finally powered up Arjun's phone to dig through his data and call logs, they stumbled on an audio file. And it was recorded right around the exact time he vanished. The length of that file? Exactly 11 seconds. 11 seconds of audio capturing the final, terrifying moments of Arjun Rao's known life.
And when the authorities actually hit play on that 11-second clip, they didn't hear Arjun. They heard a totally unidentified voice delivering this cold, deadpan message right into the microphone: "You should have minded your own business." It's just a horrific realization, isn't it? The people who scrubbed that luxury apartment didn't just try to scare him off. They actively hunted him down. That whisper he heard through the door, it finally caught up to him.
So what are we ultimately left with here? We're looking at a deeply unsettling reality, the actual cost of seeing too much. To this day, nobody knows what happened to Arjun Rao, but his story highlights this massive systemic issue. Think about how incredibly vulnerable gig workers really are. These are people navigating our cities in the dead of night, literally crossing the boundary between the safety of the public street and the private, and sometimes incredibly dangerous worlds behind closed doors. They don't have security details. They don't have corporate protection. It's just them, their phone, and an app. And when someone like Arjun accidentally stumbles into a high-stakes crime, they are completely on their own. Severely outmatched by people who clearly have the power to make entire crime scenes, and the witnesses who find them just disappear without a trace.
You know, Arjun literally did exactly what we're all taught to do. He saw something awful, and he called it in. He tried to help a woman he thought was hurt. And for doing the right thing, he paid the absolute ultimate price. It just leaves us with this heavy, super uncomfortable question about human nature and self-preservation. Knowing what we know about Arjun Rao's unresolved fate, knowing the kind of power that hides in the shadows, if you were the one standing in that fluorescent hallway at 2:04 a.m. holding a bag of takeout, and you saw a motionless hand in the doorway, would you actually speak up, or would you just turn around and walk away?